The fluorescent lights hummed overhead like dying insects, casting their sterile glow across the hospital's linoleum floors. My sneakers squeaked with each hurried step, a sound I'd grown to hate during these endless night shifts. The smell of antiseptic burned my nostrils, mixing with the faint metallic tang of blood that seemed to permeate everything in this place. I was exhausted, bone-deep tired in a way that made my limbs feel like they were filled with sand. "Emma, we need you in OR3, stat." The charge nurse's voice crackled through the intercom, sharp and urgent. My heart kicked against my ribs. I'd been working at St. Catherine's for 6 months now, just a surgical nurse trying to make ends meet, trying to survive in a city that chewed up people like me and spit them out. The pay was barely enough to cover my studio apartment in the worst part of town, but it was honest work. It was mine. I grabbed my surgical cap and pushed through the double doors, my hands already reaching for the sanitizer dispenser. The hallway leading to the operating rooms was colder than the rest of the hospital, and I could feel goosebumps rising along my arms beneath my scrubs. My reflection caught in the glass partition. Dark circles under my eyes, hair that needed washing, a face that had forgotten how to look anything but worn down. "Emma, wait!" I turned to find Sarah, one of the senior nurses, rushing toward me. Her face was pale, almost gray in the harsh lighting. She grabbed my arm with fingers that dug in hard enough to bruise, and I could feel her trembling. "Sarah, what?" "Don't go in there." Her voice was barely a whisper, but the fear in it made my stomach clench. "It's a trap. They're not here for surgery." "What are you talking about?" I tried to pull away, but her grip tightened. "I was called." "I know what you were called for." Her eyes darted down the hallway, checking the shadows. "But that man in there, Emma, that's Dominic Salvatore." The name meant nothing to me. I stared at her, confused and increasingly annoyed. I was tired. I had a job to do, and Sarah was acting like she'd lost her mind. "I don't know who that is," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "But someone needs medical attention. And he's the head of the Salvatore crime family." Sarah's whisper was urgent now, almost desperate. "The Mafia, Emma. The actual Mafia. And if they called you specifically..." She swallowed hard. "Something's wrong. Hide. Please." My mouth went dry. I'd heard stories, of course. Everyone in the city had. Whispered tales of the families that really ran things, that operated in the spaces between the law. But that world had always felt distant. Like something from a movie. Not something that could touch me in my small, insignificant life. "I can't just..." I started, but Sarah was already backing away, releasing my arm. "I have kids, Emma. I'm sorry." And then she was gone, disappearing through a side door, leaving me alone in that cold hallway with my heart hammering and my mind racing. I should have run. Every instinct I had was screaming at me to turn around, to hide like Sarah had said, to pretend I'd never heard the call. But my feet wouldn't move. Maybe it was exhaustion. Maybe it was shock. But I found myself pushing through the OR doors instead. The operating room was flooded with light. So bright it made my eyes water. But it wasn't set up for surgery. No instruments laid out, no anesthesiologist, no surgical team. Just 4 men in dark suits standing around the table, and 1 man lying on it. No, not just 1 man. He was young, maybe early 30s, with dark hair that fell across his forehead, and a face that looked like it had been carved from marble by someone who understood beauty and cruelty in equal measure. Even lying down, even bleeding from what looked like a gunshot wound to his shoulder, he radiated power. It rolled off him in waves, filling the room like smoke. His suit was custom-tailored, the kind that cost more than I made in a year. I could see the fine weave of the fabric, dark charcoal with a subtle pinstripe. His shirt was white, or had been before the blood. An expensive watch caught the light on his wrist, gold and gleaming, but it was his eyes that froze me in place. They opened as the door swung shut behind me, and they were the color of whiskey held up to firelight, amber and brown and gold all at once. Those eyes locked onto me with an intensity that made my breath catch, made every nerve in my body light up with a warning I couldn't quite name. Danger. This man was danger personified. "Who the fuck is this?" One of the suited men stepped forward, his hand moving to his jacket where I could see the outline of a gun. I'm a nurse." My voice came out smaller than I wanted. I was called to OR3. We didn't call for you. Another man, broader, with a scar running down his cheek. Marco, get her out of here. But before Marco could move, the man on the table spoke. Stop. One word. Just one word. But it crackled through the room like a whip, and every man in the vicinity went perfectly still. The voice was rough, strained with pain, but underneath that roughness was steel. Authority. The kind of voice that didn't need to be raised to be obeyed. Sir, we can't, the scarred man started. I said stop. Those amber eyes never left my face. Come here. It wasn't a request. Nothing about this man suggested he ever made requests. I should have refused. I should have run. But my legs were moving, carrying me forward until I stood beside the operating table, close enough to smell him. Expensive cologne mixed with gunpowder and copper blood. Up close, he was even more devastating. Sharp cheekbones, a jaw that could cut glass, lips that were pressed tight against pain. But there was something else in his face. Something that made my chest tighten. He looked surprised, like he'd seen a ghost. Your name? It wasn't a question, but I answered anyway. Emma. Emma Chen. Emma. He said it slowly, like he was tasting each syllable. His hand moved, fast, despite the injury, and caught my wrist. His fingers were warm, his grip firm but not painful. You're going to help me. Sir, this isn't a good idea, the first man, Marco, protested. We don't know her. We can't trust. She stays. Dominic's eyes finally broke away from mine to pin Marco with a look that could have frozen blood, everyone else out. Except Luca. The scarred man, Luca apparently, nodded. Boss, are you sure about this? Out. Now. The room emptied in seconds, leaving only the three of us, me, Dominic Salvatore, and the man who was clearly his second in command. The silence that followed was suffocating. I could hear my own heartbeat, could hear the ragged edge of Dominic's breathing, could hear the hum of the lights overhead. I need you to remove the bullet. His voice was steadier now, controlled despite what must have been considerable pain. Can you do that? I looked at the wound. It was high up on his left shoulder, still bleeding sluggishly. The bullet might have missed the major arteries. But without proper equipment, without proper conditions, you need a real surgeon, I said. Can you do it or not? His jaw clenched, and I saw a muscle jump in his cheek. Yes or no, Emma? The way he said my name did something strange to my insides, made warmth pool low in my belly despite the fear, despite everything. I swallowed hard and nodded. I'll need supplies, proper instruments, antibiotics, something for the pain. Luca. Dominic didn't need to say more. The scarred man was already moving, pulling a phone from his pocket, speaking in rapid, quiet Italian. I moved on autopilot, gathering what I could from the OR's supply cabinets. My hands were shaking, but I forced them steady. This was what I knew. This was what I could do. The medical part, at least. The rest. The men with guns. The Mafia boss watching my every move. The trap that Sarah had warned me about. I shoved all of that into a corner of my mind and focused on the wound. This is going to hurt, I warned as I cleaned the area around the bullet hole. I don't have enough anesthetic to... Just do it. His hand shot out and gripped the edge of the operating table, knuckles going white. I've had worse. I believed him. There were scars on his torso. I could see them where his shirt hung open. Old wounds, some that looked like they should have killed him. This was a man intimately acquainted with pain. My fingers found the bullet. I could feel it, lodged against bone. Sweat beaded on my forehead as I worked, using the forceps to carefully extract it. Dominic made no sound, but his breathing went harsh, and his entire body went rigid. The air in the room felt electric, charged with tension that had nothing to do with the medical procedure. The bullet came free with a wet sound that made my stomach turn. I dropped it into a metal tray where it clinked against the steel, then immediately moved to clean and close the wound. My hands moved with practiced efficiency, suturing the torn flesh, applying antibiotics, wrapping clean bandages. Through it all, Dominic watched me. I could feel his gaze on my face, burning like a physical touch. It made my skin prickle, made my breath come faster. There was something unsettling about being the focus of such intense attention, something that made me feel simultaneously visible and vulnerable in a way I'd never experienced. "Done," I finally said, stepping back. My scrubs were spotted with his blood, and my hands were trembling again. "But you need to see a real doctor, get proper antibiotics, watch for infection. You did well." He sat up slowly, testing the shoulder. "Better than well." "I'm just a nurse," I said. "Anyone could have—" "No." He swung his legs over the side of the table, and suddenly he was standing, towering over me despite the fresh injury. This close, I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "Not anyone. You didn't panic. You didn't run. You did what needed to be done." "Your nurse told me it was a trap," I heard myself say. "That I shouldn't come in here." Something flickered across his face. Amusement, maybe, or respect. Smart woman, that nurse. What's her name? Fear spiked through me. I don't know. I barely know anyone here. I'm still new." "Easy." His hand came up and I flinched, but he only touched my chin, tilting my face toward the light. "I'm not going to hurt anyone. I just want to know who's looking out for you." "Why would you care?" The question slipped out before I could stop it. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone, and I felt that touch all the way down to my toes. "Because," he said softly, "you look exactly like someone I lost. And now you've saved my life. That creates complications." Before I could process that statement, before I could ask what he meant, Luca spoke from the doorway. "Boss, we need to move. The cops are asking questions downstairs and—" "Handle it." Dominic's eyes never left mine. "Emma, I need you to come with us." "What? No, I can't. I have a shift. The moment those police officers find out you treated a gunshot wound and didn't report it, you become an accessory." His voice was matter-of-fact, almost gentle. "Your life as you know it is over. You have two choices. Come with me and be protected, or stay here and face federal charges." My blood ran cold. "You can't. It's exactly fair." He reached out and took my hand, his fingers threading through mine like we'd done this 1,000 times before. "And deep down, you know it. The moment you walked through that door, the moment you touched me, you crossed a line. There's no going back now." "This is insane," I whispered, but I didn't pull my hand away. "I don't even know you." "You will." His grip tightened, possessive and sure. "I promise you that, Emma. You will know me. Every part of me. And I will know you." Luca cleared his throat. "Boss, we really need to— Get the car. Make sure the route is clear." Dominic was already guiding me toward the door, his hand on the small of my back, burning through the thin fabric of my scrubs. "And Luca? Anyone asks about the nurse? You never saw her. She was never here." "Understood, boss." The hallway was empty when we emerged. Dominic moved with confidence despite his injury, his presence seeming to fill every space we passed through. I could feel people watching from doorways and side corridors. Shadows with eyes, all of them looking away the moment Dominic's gaze swept in their direction. We took a service elevator that I'd never noticed before, one that required a key card. Dominic produced one from his jacket pocket like magic. The descent felt endless, and with each floor, I became more aware of what was happening, of what I'd done. I'd treated a criminal. I'd saved the life of a Mafia boss. And now I was leaving with him, disappearing into the night like some character from a story that always ended badly for girls like me. The elevator opened onto an underground parking garage. A black SUV with tinted windows was waiting, engine running. 2 more men in suits flanked it, their eyes constantly scanning the shadows. This was his world, a world of security and paranoia, of threats lurking in every corner. Dominic opened the back door himself and gestured for me to get in. The interior smelled like leather and that same expensive cologne. I hesitated, my foot on the running board, my whole body screaming that this was the point of no return. "Emma." His voice was soft, but there was steel underneath. "Trust me." "I don't even know you," I repeated, but even I could hear how weak the protest sounded. "Then let me be the first thing you learn in your new life. He placed his hand on my lower back again, and this time I felt the heat of his palm like a brand. Get in the car. Let me show you what you've become a part of. Let me show you what it means to belong to me. Belong to him. The words should have terrified me. Instead, they sent a shiver down my spine that wasn't entirely unpleasant. I climbed into the SUV. Dominic slid in beside me, close enough that our thighs touched. The door closed with a heavy thunk, sealing us in together. The vehicle pulled away smoothly, and through the tinted windows, I watched St. Catherine's Hospital disappear behind us. Watch my old life recede like a dream I was waking from. Where are we going? My voice sounded strange in the quiet interior. Dominic's hand found mine again in the darkness. Home, he said simply. My home. Where you'll be safe. Where I can keep you. Keep me. Like I was something precious. Like I was something that belonged to him now. And God help me. But I didn't pull my hand away. The city blurred past the tinted windows. Neon signs bleeding into darkness. Streetlights creating halos in the light rain that had started to fall. I watched it all with a strange sense of detachment. Like I was watching a movie of someone else's life. My hand was still in Dominic's, his thumb tracing absent circles on my palm that sent shivers up my arm. You're trembling. His voice cut through the silence, low and observant. I'm cold. It wasn't entirely a lie. The adrenaline was wearing off, leaving me shaky and unmoored. Without a word, Dominic shrugged out of his jacket, the one that wasn't blood-soaked, and draped it over my shoulders. The fabric was still warm from his body, and it smelled like him. Expensive, masculine, dangerous. I pulled it tighter around myself, hating how much comfort I took from it. Where's your family, Emma? He asked, his eyes studying my face in the dim light from the dashboard. I don't have any, not anymore. The words came out flat, practiced. My parents died when I was 19. Car accident. I've been on my own since then. Something shifted in his expression. Not quite softness, but something close to understanding. No siblings? No boyfriend waiting for you to come home? No one. I met his gaze, saw something flicker there that I couldn't name. There's no one who'll miss me. Good. The word was possessive, final. His hand tightened on mine. That makes things simpler. Simpler for what? I tried to pull away, but his grip was unyielding. What exactly do you think is going to happen here? You can't just kidnap me. I'm not kidnapping you. His lips curved into something that wasn't quite a smile. I'm protecting you. There's a difference. Is there? My voice rose despite my efforts to stay calm. Because from where I'm sitting, I didn't have much choice about getting in this car. You always have a choice, Emma. He leaned closer, and I could feel the heat radiating from his body. You could have refused. You could have screamed for help. You could have run. But you didn't. Why is that? I didn't have an answer. Or maybe I did, and I just didn't want to admit it. There was something about this man, something that called to a part of me I'd kept locked away for years. The part that was tired of being invisible, of being overlooked, of struggling just to survive another day. The SUV turned down a tree-lined street where the houses gave way to estates, then pulled through massive iron gates that swung open at our approach. The driveway was long, winding through manicured gardens that I could barely make out in the darkness. Then the house came into view, and my breath caught. It wasn't a house. It was a mansion. All stone and glass and elegant lines, lit up like something from a magazine. The kind of place I'd only ever seen in movies, the kind of wealth that existed in a completely different universe from mine. Welcome home, Dominic said softly, as the SUV pulled to a stop in front of massive double doors. Luca appeared from nowhere to open the car door. The rain had picked up, but someone was already there with an umbrella, shielding us as Dominic guided me up the stone steps. His hand never left the small of my back, that possessive touch that was becoming familiar far too quickly. The entrance hall stole what was left of my breath. Marble floors gleamed under a crystal chandelier that probably cost more than I'd earn in a lifetime. A curved staircase swept upward to the second floor, and I could see doorways leading off to rooms that seemed to stretch endlessly. "Maria!" Dominic called out, and an older woman appeared from one of the side corridors. She was dressed simply but elegantly, her gray hair pulled back in a neat bun. Her eyes widened when she saw the blood on Dominic's shirt, but she said nothing, just nodded. "Prepare the guest room in the east wing," Dominic instructed. "And have Rosa bring up some clothes." He glanced at me, assessing. "Size 4, I think, and food. She needs to eat." "Right away, Mr. Salvatore." Maria's accent was Italian, thick and musical. Her eyes slid to me with open curiosity. But again, she asked no questions. "Come." Dominic's hand found mine again, tugging me toward the staircase. "You need rest." "I need answers." I planted my feet, finally finding some backbone. "You said I look like someone you lost. What does that mean? And why did you really bring me here?" He turned to face me fully, and in the bright light of the chandelier, I could see him clearly for the first time since the hospital. The pain lines around his mouth, the exhaustion in his eyes, but also something else, something intense and almost hungry. "My sister," he said quietly. "You look like my sister Adriana. Same eyes, same bone structure, same—" He reached out and touched my hair, letting a strand slip through his fingers. "Same defiance, even when you're terrified. What happened to her?" His jaw clenched. "She was killed. 5 years ago. A rival family thought they could get to me through her." His eyes went distant, cold. They were wrong. But by the time I'd finished with them, she was already gone. The grief in his voice was raw, real. Despite everything, I felt my heart clench with sympathy. "I'm sorry." "Don't be." His focus snapped back to me. "She made her own choices, just like you're making yours. But when I saw you tonight, when you walked through that door," he shook his head. "For a moment, I thought I was seeing a ghost, and then you saved my life, and I knew." "Knew what?" "That I wasn't going to let you go." His hand cupped my cheek, thumb brushing across my lower lip. "Call it fate, call it insanity, call it whatever you want. But you're mine now, Emma, and I protect what's mine." I should have been terrified. Every rational part of my brain was screaming at me to run, to fight, to do anything but stand there and let this dangerous man claim ownership of me. But my body wasn't listening to reason. It was responding to the heat in his eyes, to the possessiveness in his touch, to the promise of being wanted, truly wanted, for the first time in my life. "I'm not your sister," I whispered. "No." His smile was sharp, predatory. "You're not. And the things I want to do to you have nothing to do with sisterly affection." Heat flooded through me, pooling low in my belly. Before I could respond, Maria reappeared with another woman in tow. Younger, maybe mid-20s, carrying an armload of clothes. "Your room is ready, miss," Maria said gently. "Rosa will help you get settled." Dominic released me, though his eyes promised this conversation wasn't over. "Get cleaned up. Rest. We'll talk more in the morning. And if I want to leave," I had to ask, had to know, "then you'll find that the gates are locked, the walls are high, and my men are very good at their jobs." He said it without apology, without shame. "Like I said, Emma, you're mine now. The sooner you accept that, the easier this will be." He turned and walked away, Luca falling into step beside him. I watched them disappear down a hallway, my heart pounding, my mind reeling. "This way, miss." Rosa's voice was soft, accented. She gestured toward the staircase, her expression kind but carefully neutral. I followed her up the stairs, down a long hallway lined with paintings that probably cost more than my car. She opened a door to reveal a bedroom that was bigger than my entire apartment. A 4-poster bed dominated the space, draped in silk that shimmered in the soft lighting. French doors led to what looked like a balcony, and another door revealed an ensuite bathroom complete with a tub that could fit 3 people. "Mr. Salvatore said you would need clothes," Rosa said, laying out the items on the bed. Jeans, soft sweaters, underwear that looked expensive and delicate. "These should fit. If you need anything else, just pick up the phone. Someone will answer." "Rosa," I said before she could leave, "how long have you worked here?" 3 years, miss." "And have there been other women? Like me?" She met my eyes, and something like sympathy flickered there. "No, miss. Never. Mr. Salvatore, he is very private. You are the first." I didn't know if that made things better or worse. After she left, I stripped off my blood-stained scrubs and stepped into the shower. The water was hot, almost scalding, and I stood under the spray until my skin turned pink. I scrubbed at the blood under my fingernails, watched it swirl down the drain, and tried to process what had happened. 24 hours ago, I'd been a nobody, an exhausted nurse barely making rent, invisible to everyone around me. Now I was standing in a mansion, wearing a robe that probably cost more than my monthly salary, held captive by a Mafia boss who looked at me like I was something precious and dangerous all at once. I should call the police. I should find a way out. I should. But I did none of those things. Instead, I dried off and pulled on the clothes Rosa had left, jeans that fit perfectly, a cashmere sweater that felt like a cloud against my skin. I braided my wet hair over one shoulder and stared at myself in the mirror. I looked different, not just clean and well-dressed, but different in a way I couldn't quite name. Like something had shifted inside me, like crossing that threshold had changed me on a cellular level. A knock at the door made me jump. "Come in." Maria entered carrying a tray laden with food, soup that smelled incredible, fresh bread, fruit, and what looked like homemade pasta. "Mr. Salvatore said you hadn't eaten." My stomach growled in response, betraying me. I hadn't eaten, hadn't had time during my shift, and certainly hadn't thought about food since everything had gone sideways. "Thank you," I said, taking the tray to a small table by the window. "Maria, can I ask you something?" She paused at the door. "Of course, miss. What kind of man is Dominic Salvatore?" Really, she considered the question carefully. "He is a hard man, miss, dangerous, but also fair, loyal to those who are loyal to him. He has rules, a code. He does not hurt women or children. He does not deal in drugs or human trafficking. These things, they are important to him. And murder?" I had to ask. "Does his code allow for that?" "Mr. Salvatore does what must be done to protect his family and his business." Her voice was matter of fact. In his world, there are only two kinds of people, those under his protection and those who are threats. It is better, I think, to be the first. After she left, I ate mechanically, tasting nothing. My mind was too busy cataloging exits, analyzing options, trying to find a way out of this beautiful cage. But even as I planned, I knew I wouldn't run. Not tonight. Maybe not ever. Because the truth I didn't want to admit was that for the first time in years, I didn't feel invisible. I felt seen, wanted, claimed, and God help me. But some dark part of my soul craved that feeling like oxygen. I was finishing the last of the soup when my door opened without warning. Dominic stood in the doorway, changed into fresh clothes, black pants and a white shirt with the sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms corded with muscle and marked with more scars. His shoulder was properly bandaged now, the blood gone. "You should have knocked," I said, trying to sound braver than I felt. "It's my house." He moved into the room with that predatory grace, all coiled power barely contained. "Everything in it belongs to me, including you. I'm not a possession. Aren't you?" He stopped in front of me, close enough that I had to tilt my head back to meet his eyes. "You're in my house, wearing clothes I provided, eating food from my table. You're under my protection, which means you're mine to keep safe, mine to watch over." His hand came up to cup my face. Mine to touch. My breath caught. This is insane. Probably. His thumb traced my lower lip again, and I felt that touch everywhere. But I stopped caring about sanity the moment that bullet hit me, and I realized I might die without ever knowing what it felt like to have you. "You don't even know me," but my voice came out breathy, unconvincing. "I will." He leaned closer, his breath ghosting across my lips. "I'm going to learn everything about you, Emma. Every secret, every fear, every dream you've ever had. And in return, you're going to learn me. Learn what it means to belong to someone like me. And if I don't want to belong to you, then I'll spend every day convincing you otherwise." His lips brushed against mine, not quite a kiss, just a promise. "Until you can't imagine belonging to anyone else." He pulled back, leaving me dizzy and aching. "Sleep well, Emma. Tomorrow, Your new life begins." Then he was gone, the door clicking shut behind him, leaving me alone with my racing heart and the ghost of his touch on my lips. I walked to the French doors and pushed them open, stepping onto the balcony. The rain had stopped, leaving the air clean and cool. The ground stretched out below, gardens and trees, and in the distance, the wall. High and imposing, topped with something that glinted in the moonlight. Cameras, maybe, or something worse. This was my prison now, golden and beautiful and suffocating. But as I stood there in the darkness, feeling the weight of Dominic's jacket still around my shoulders, I couldn't shake the feeling that some part of me had been waiting for this, waiting for someone to see me, to claim me, to want me enough to build a cage just to keep me, and that terrified me more than anything else. Sunlight streamed through the French doors, warm and insistent against my eyelids. For a moment, I forgot where I was, forgot everything that had happened. Then I opened my eyes to silk sheets and an unfamiliar ceiling, and it all came rushing back. The hospital, the blood. Dominic's amber eyes watching me like I was something he'd been searching for his entire life. I sat up, my body stiff from tension I'd carried even in sleep. The clock on the nightstand read 9:47 a.m. I never slept this late. My shifts at the hospital usually had me up before dawn. But I didn't have shifts anymore, did I? That life was gone, erased the moment I'd walked into that operating room. A soft knock interrupted my spiraling thoughts. "Miss Emma, may I come in?" "Yes," I called, pulling the sheets higher even though I was fully dressed in the clothes I'd fallen asleep in. Rosa entered carrying another tray, this one laden with breakfast. The smell of coffee hit me first, rich and dark, followed by the scent of fresh pastries and eggs. My stomach growled despite my anxiety. "Mr. Salvatore asked me to bring you breakfast," Rosa said, setting the tray on the table. "He also asked if you would join him in his study at 11 o'clock. Not a request. An order, phrased politely." "What if I say no?" Rosa's expression remained carefully neutral. "Then I imagine he would come here instead, miss. Mr. Salvatore is not a man accustomed to being refused." After she left, I picked at the food. Croissants that melted on my tongue, eggs cooked perfectly, fruit so fresh it must have been picked this morning. Everything tasted like luxury, like a life I'd only ever glimpsed from the outside. I showered again, taking my time under the hot water, trying to wash away the feeling of being trapped. When I finally emerged, I found that more clothes had appeared. A simple black dress that hugged my curves, elegant but not provocative. Whoever had chosen it understood my size perfectly, which should have been comforting, but instead felt invasive. At precisely 11 o'clock, I opened my door to find Luca waiting in the hallway. Up close and in daylight, he was even more intimidating, tall and broad, with that scar cutting through his face like a warning. But his eyes, when they met mine, held a hint of something almost like respect. "Miss Chen." He gestured down the hallway. "This way, please." I followed him through the mansion, taking in details I'd missed last night. Paintings lined the walls, real art, not prints. Sculptures stood in alcoves. Everything spoke of wealth that had been accumulated over generations, not quickly or easily. Luca stopped in front of a heavy wooden door and knocked twice. "Boss, Miss Chen is here." "Send her in." The study was all dark wood and leather, floor-to-ceiling bookshelves filled with volumes that looked actually read. A massive desk dominated the space, and behind it sat Dominic, bathed in the sunlight streaming through tall windows. He'd been working on something, papers spread across the desk, a laptop open, but his attention shifted to me immediately, absolute and unwavering. "Close the door, Luca." The door clicked shut, leaving us alone. Dominic stood, moving around the desk with that same fluid grace despite his injury. Today he wore all black, black shirt, black pants, looking like a fallen angel or a beautiful devil. "You slept well?" he asked, studying my face, as well as anyone being held prisoner could. His lips quirked. "You're not a prisoner, Emma. You're a guest. Guests can leave whenever they want, can they?" He moved closer, and I forced myself not to retreat. Tell me, if I opened those gates right now, if I gave you money and a car, where would you go? The question hit harder than it should have. Back to my empty apartment? Back to a hospital where I'd committed a federal crime? Back to a life where I was completely, utterly alone? That's what I thought. He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering. You have nowhere to go, no one waiting for you. Your old life is over. But here, with me, you could have everything. I don't want your money. No? His hand slid down to cut my throat. Not squeezing, just holding, his thumb resting on my racing pulse. Then what do you want, Emma? The truth stuck in my throat. I want to matter. I want to be seen. I want someone to look at me the way you're looking at me right now, like I'm the most important thing in the world. But I couldn't say that. Wouldn't give him that power. I want to understand why, I said instead. Why me? Just because I look like your sister? His eyes darkened. Come with me. I want to show you something. He led me through the mansion to another wing, up a different staircase to a door that looked heavier than the others. It required a key, and when it swung open, I understood why. It was a shrine. That was the only word for it. The room was full of photographs, a young woman with dark hair and eyes like mine, smiling in frame after frame, Adriana, his sister. But it wasn't just photos. There were her belongings, a jacket draped over a chair, books on a shelf, even her perfume on the dresser. This was her room. Dominic said quietly, I haven't changed anything since she died. I moved closer to one of the photographs. The resemblance was striking. Same bone structure, same build. But Adriana looked happy, carefree in a way I'd never been. She was beautiful, I whispered. She was everything. His voice was raw with grief. My parents died when I was 22. I inherited the business, the responsibility, all of it. Adriana was only 16. I raised her, protected her, or thought I did. But I couldn't protect her from my enemies. How did it happen? They took her from outside her university, held her for 3 days before... He stopped, jaw clenching. Before they sent me pieces of her. A finger with her ring still on it. A lock of her hair. They wanted me to know she'd suffered. Horror washed through me. Oh my God. I found every single person involved. His voice went cold, flat. It took me 2 years, but I found them all, and I made sure they understood what it meant to take something precious from me. I should have been repulsed, should have been terrified of this man who spoke so casually about revenge, about murder. But all I felt was a strange sort of understanding. He'd loved his sister, and he'd avenged her in the only way he knew how. So, when you saw me, I started. When I saw you, I thought I was hallucinating from blood loss. He moved behind me, his chest against my back, his hands settling on my waist. But then you touched me, spoke to me, saved me, and I realized you weren't a ghost. You were real. A second chance I never thought I'd get. A second chance for what? To protect someone, to keep someone safe. His lips brushed against my ear. To have someone who's mine and mine alone. I turned in his arms, needing to see his face. I'm not her, Dominic. I'm not your sister, and I can't replace her. I don't want you to replace her. His hands tightened on my waist, possessive and sure. I want you to be exactly who you are. But I also won't apologize for keeping you here, for claiming you. The moment you walked into that operating room, the moment you put your hands on me, you became mine, and I don't let go of what's mine. That's insane. Maybe. He leaned down, his forehead resting against mine. But insanity runs in my blood. Accept it, Emma. Accept me. Stop fighting what we both know you feel. I don't feel anything, I lied. His laugh was dark, knowing. Liar. Your pulse races when I touch you. Your breath catches when I get close. You want this just as much as I do. You're just too afraid to admit it. Before I could protest, his phone buzzed. He pulled it out, his expression hardening as he read the message. I have business to attend to. Luca will take you back to your room. What kind of business? I don't know why I asked. Maybe because I wanted to understand this world I'd been dragged into, the kind that keeps you safe. He pressed a kiss to my forehead, surprisingly gentle, Stay in the house today. Don't go outside. My men are everywhere, but there are people who would hurt you if they knew you mattered to me. I don't matter to you. We just met. You matter." His eyes burned into mine. "More than you know. More than you should, and that's exactly why you need to stay inside where I know you're protected." He left, and Luca appeared to escort me back, but this time, I paid attention to the layout, noting exits and windows, filing away information I might need. Not to escape. I still didn't know where I'd go, but because I needed some sense of control. Back in my room, I found Rosa waiting with lunch and more clothes. "Mr. Salvatore thought you might want something to do," she said, gesturing to a stack of books on the nightstand. "He noticed you looking at the library earlier." I hadn't been looking at the library. At least I didn't think I had. But the observation chilled me. He was watching me that closely. The afternoon crawled by. I tried to read but couldn't focus. I paced the room like a caged animal. I stood on the balcony and studied the grounds, the walls, the gates in the distance. Everything about this place was designed to keep people in, or keep them out. As the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink, I heard a commotion from somewhere below. Shouting, the screech of tires. My heart kicked into overdrive. I moved to the French doors, pressing against the glass to see what was happening. 3 SUVs had pulled up to the entrance. Men poured out, all in dark suits, all moving with military precision. And in the center of it all was Dominic, his face set in hard lines, barking orders I couldn't hear. Then I saw what they were dragging from one of the vehicles, a man, bloodied and beaten, his hands bound. He was pleading, his mouth moving desperately, but no one was listening. They hauled him around the side of the mansion. Out of sight, I stepped back from the doors, my stomach churning. This was his world. Violence and blood and men who disappeared in the night. This was what it meant to belong to Dominic Salvatore. A knock at my door made me jump. "Miss Emma, Mr. Salvatore requests your presence at dinner." I wanted to refuse, wanted to lock myself in this room and pretend I hadn't seen what I'd seen. But I also knew it wouldn't matter. If Dominic wanted me at dinner, I'd be at dinner, whether I walked there willingly or not. Rosa had laid out another dress, this one deep burgundy and more formal. I changed mechanically, then let her guide me downstairs to a dining room that looked like it belonged in a palace. A long table stretched the length of the room, but only 2 places were set, one at the head and one to the right. Dominic was already there, standing by the windows with a glass of what looked like whiskey. He'd changed too, into a dark suit that made him look every inch the dangerous man he was. When he turned and saw me, something flashed in his eyes. Hunger, possessiveness, and something darker I couldn't name. "You look beautiful," he said, setting down his glass and pulling out my chair. I saw what happened earlier. The words spilled out before I could stop them. The man they brought in, his expression didn't change. "Did you? Who was he? What did he do?" "He betrayed me." Dominic sat at the head of the table, close enough to touch. "He stole from my businesses and thought he could get away with it. He was wrong." "What are you going to do to him?" "What I do to all traitors." His voice was matter-of-fact, casual. "Make an example of him so others know what happens when they cross me." Nausea rolled through me. "You're going to kill him. Eventually." He picked up his wine glass, swirling the red liquid. "First, I need information. Names of whoever he was working with, details about what was stolen." "Then yes, Emma, I'm going to kill him." I should have been horrified, should have demanded he let me go, should have screamed that I wanted no part of this, but instead, I found myself asking, "Why are you telling me this?" "Because I won't lie to you." He leaned forward, his eyes intense. "I want you to understand exactly who I am, and what I do. I'm not a good man, Emma. I've done terrible things. I'll do more terrible things, but I protect what's mine with everything I have." "And you're mine now. I never agreed to that. You didn't have to." His hand reached across the table, covering mine. "The moment you saved my life, you sealed your fate. You're in my world now, whether you want to be or not. The only question is whether you're going to fight it or accept it." Staff appeared with food, course after course of dishes I couldn't even name, let alone taste. My appetite had vanished. All I could think about was that man being dragged away, about what was happening to him right now in some basement or warehouse. "Eat," Dominic commanded softly. "You need your strength." "For what?" His smile was predatory. "For everything I have planned for you." We ate in tense silence, his eyes never leaving me. Every time I raised my fork, every time I sipped my water, he watched, studying me like I was a puzzle he was determined to solve. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Why are you staring at me?" "Because you're the most fascinating thing I've seen in 5 years. He stood, moving to my side and pulling me to my feet. "Because every time I look at you, I see possibility. A chance at something I thought I'd lost forever." "What did you lose?" "Hope." His hands framed my face, tilting it up toward his. "Connection. The feeling that life could be more than just blood and business. You make me feel human again, Emma. And I'm not sure if that's a gift or a curse. Dominic, I know you're scared." His thumb traced my cheekbone. "I know this isn't what you wanted, but I promise you this. As long as you're under my protection, no one will hurt you. No one will make you feel small or invisible ever again. You'll want for nothing, and you'll be treasured like the precious thing you are. And in return? In return, you stay. You accept that you're mine. And eventually, when you're ready, you let me show you exactly what that means." His lips brushed mine, soft, questioning, giving me space to refuse. But I didn't refuse. Instead, I found myself leaning into him, my hands fisting in his shirt, my mouth opening under his. The kiss deepened, turned hungry. His hands slid down my back, pulling me flush against him. I could feel his heart pounding, could feel the tightly leashed control threatening to snap. When we finally broke apart, both breathing hard, his eyes were molten gold. "Soon," he promised darkly. "Soon, I'm going to make you mine in every way possible. And you're going to beg me for it." Then he released me and walked away, leaving me trembling and aching and terrified of how much I wanted him to be right. 3 days passed in a strange sort of limbo. I existed in Dominic's mansion like a ghost, there but not quite real, trapped between my old life and whatever this new existence was becoming. He gave me space, but his presence was everywhere. I'd find fresh flowers in my room each morning. Books appeared that matched my taste perfectly, as if he'd somehow cataloged every preference I had. Meals were served at exact times I didn't realize I'd established a pattern for. He was learning me, just like he'd promised, and it was terrifying how much I didn't mind. On the 4th morning, I woke to find Rosa waiting with a different kind of outfit: jeans, a soft sweater, comfortable boots. "Mr. Salvatore asks if you would join him outside today," she said. "He thought you might enjoy some fresh air outside." The word sent a thrill through me that I tried to suppress. I'd been inside these walls for days, and even a gilded cage felt suffocating after a while. Dominic was waiting by the gardens, dressed casually in dark jeans and a leather jacket. He looked younger like this, less like a crime lord and more like a man who could have been anyone. But then his eyes found mine, and that illusion shattered. Those amber depths held too much darkness, too much knowledge of things people like me should never witness. "Walk with me," he said, offering his hand. I took it, hating how natural it felt to have my fingers threaded through his. The gardens were extensive, manicured lawns giving way to wilder areas with trees and winding paths. 2 of his men followed at a discreet distance, always watching. I'd learned their names over the past few days. Marco, the one who'd wanted me thrown out that first night, and Vincent, younger but no less dangerous. "You've been a model prisoner," Dominic said, a hint of amusement in his voice. "Guest?" I corrected automatically. "Guest," he agreed. "Rosa tells me you've been reading. The Jane Austen surprised me." "Why?" "Because criminal nurses can't appreciate classic literature." His laugh was genuine, transforming his face. "Because Austen writes about social constraints and women trapped by circumstance. I thought you'd choose something about escape." "Maybe I'm learning to appreciate my circumstances." The words came out more honest than I'd intended. We walked in silence for a while, following a path that led to a small pond with a fountain in the center. Stone benches sat nearby, and Dominic guided me to one. He sat close, his thigh pressed against mine. "I want to tell you something," he said. About the night I was shot. I turned to face him, seeing tension in the set of his shoulders. You don't have to. Yes, I do. He stared out at the water. It was supposed to be a simple meeting. One of my suppliers, a man I've done business with for years, but he'd made a deal with the Castellanos, a rival family. They thought if they took me out, they could absorb my territory. What happened to him? The supplier? He's dead. So are the 3 Castellano soldiers who were waiting in ambush. His voice was matter of fact, but one of them got a shot off before Luca put him down. The bullet that hit me, it should have killed me. Should have hit my heart. But at the last second I moved, just enough. Why are you telling me this? He finally looked at me. Because that man you saw them drag in? The one I told you I was going to kill? He was the supplier's accountant. He was feeding information to the Castellanos, helping them set the trap. My stomach clenched. Is he dead? Yes. 2 days ago. Dominic's hand found mine. I'm not telling you this to frighten you, Emma. I'm telling you because I want you to understand the world you're in now. The men who tried to kill me, the men who helped them, they knew about you by the 2nd day. Fear spiked through me. What? They have people everywhere, in the hospital, in the police, in my own organization. The moment you got in my car, the moment you were seen with me, you became a target. His grip tightened. That's why you can't leave. Not because I'm holding you prisoner, but because out there, without my protection, you'd be dead within a week. The words hit like physical blows. You're saying I can never leave? Never have a normal life again? I'm saying that ship sailed the moment you saved my life. His free hand cupped my face. I'm sorry, Emma. If I could go back, if I could have protected you from this world, I would. But I can't. All I can do now is keep you safe. Keep you here, where my men can watch over you, where no one can hurt you. This is insane. But my protest was weak. I'd suspected as much, had known deep down that there was no going back. But hearing it confirmed made it real, in a way that threatened to shatter me. Yes, he agreed. But it's the reality we're living in, and I need you to accept it, because what's coming next? He trailed off, jaw clenching. What's coming next? The Castellanos won't stop. They'll see my survival as a sign of weakness, proof that they can challenge me. There's going to be a war, Emma. Blood in the streets, bodies piling up. And through all of it, you need to stay here, safe behind these walls. For how long? However long it takes. His thumb stroked across my cheekbone. Months, maybe longer. But I promise you this, when it's over, when every threat has been eliminated, you'll have choices again. You can stay with me, or I'll set you up somewhere far away with a new identity, enough money to start over. But until then, you're mine to protect. I should have argued. Should have demanded he let me take my chances on my own. But the fear in his eyes, genuine fear for my safety, stopped me. This wasn't just about possession or obsession. He actually cared whether I lived or died. I want to understand, I said quietly. Help me understand this world. Don't just lock me in a golden cage and expect me to be grateful. Something shifted in his expression. Respect, maybe, or admiration. What do you want to know? Everything. How you became what you are, why you do what you do, what the rules are in your world. He studied me for a long moment, then nodded. All right, but not here. Come with me. He led me back to the mansion, but instead of going inside, we went to a separate building I hadn't noticed before. Smaller, more modern. Inside was a gym, fully equipped with weights, mats, and training equipment. This is where my men train, Dominic explained. Where I train. In my world, weakness gets you killed. So everyone who works for me knows how to fight, how to protect themselves and others. Why are you showing me this? Because I'm going to teach you. He moved to a cabinet and pulled out hand wraps. You said you wanted to understand my world. The first rule is this: never be helpless. Never rely solely on someone else for your safety. He spent the next hour teaching me basic self-defense, how to break a grip, where to strike to cause maximum damage, how to use my smaller size as an advantage. His hands on my body were professional, correcting my stance, guiding my movements. But there was an undercurrent of something else, a tension that built with each touch. By the end, I was sweating and exhausted, But I also felt something I hadn't in days. Powerful. Good, Dominic said, handing me a water bottle. You're stronger than you think. We'll train every day. In a few months, you'll be able to handle yourself. And then you'll still stay here because my enemies don't fight fair. His expression darkened. They'd put a bullet in you from 100 yards away. But at least you'll be able to defend yourself if someone gets past my security. We returned to the main house as the sun was setting. Maria had prepared dinner, but this time we ate in a smaller, more intimate dining room. The conversation flowed easier than before. I asked questions about his business, the legitimate parts at least, and he answered with surprising honesty. Most of what I do is legal now, he explained. Restaurants, construction, real estate. The other activities are necessary to protect those interests, to maintain power and territory. And the violence is regrettable but unavoidable. He met my eyes steadily. I don't enjoy killing Emma, but I do what must be done to protect my family, my people. In my world, showing mercy is seen as weakness, and weakness gets exploited. After dinner, he walked me to my room. At the door, he paused, his hand on my lower back. Thank you, he said softly. For what? For trying to understand, for not fighting me every step of the way. His hand slid up to cup the back of my neck. For being brave enough to exist in this world with me. I'm not brave. I'm terrified. Bravery isn't the absence of fear. It's acting despite it. He leaned down, his lips brushing against my forehead. Sleep well, Emma. Tomorrow I'll show you more. But that night, sleep didn't come easily. I lay in the darkness, listening to the sounds of the mansion. Footsteps in distant hallways, low voices, the occasional crackle of a radio. Dominic's world, always alert, always watching. I must have finally dozed off because I woke to the sound of shouting. Not distant this time. Close. Right outside my door. I grabbed the robe Rosa had left and rushed to the door, pressing my ear against the wood. Voices, angry and urgent, then Dominic's, cutting through like a blade. I don't care what it takes. Find them. Find them and bring them to me alive. I want to know who gave the order. My door burst open, and I stumbled back as Dominic strode in, Luca right behind him. Dominic's face was a mask of cold fury, but when he saw me, something cracked in that facade. Pack a bag, he ordered. We're leaving, now. What's happening? The Castellanos found this location. They're planning a hit. He moved to my closet, pulling out clothes at random. We have maybe an hour before they arrive with enough men to breach the gates. Fear flooded through me. Oh my God. You're going to be fine. He gripped my shoulders, forcing me to look at him. I have safe houses all over the city. You'll be secure, I promise. What about you? I'm staying to handle this. At my expression, he pulled me close. I'm not letting them destroy my home, but you need to be somewhere they can't find you. Then come with me. The words came out before I could stop them. Please, his eyes softened. Emma, please. I gripped his shirt. You said I'm yours, that you protect what's yours. Well, maybe you're mine too, and I'm not losing you. For a moment, he just stared at me, something raw and vulnerable crossing his face. Then he kissed me, hard and desperate and claiming. When he pulled back, his eyes burned. Luca, change of plans. Get the cars ready. We're all leaving. Boss, are you sure? Now, Luca. 15 minutes later, we were in an SUV, speeding through the night. Dominic sat beside me, his hand never leaving mine, his phone constantly ringing with updates. Behind us, 2 more vehicles followed, filled with his men. Where are we going? I asked. Somewhere they'll never think to look. His jaw was set. Somewhere I can keep you safe, while I end this war once and for all. The city gave way to suburbs, then to countryside. We drove for over an hour, finally turning down a private road that led to a sprawling estate even larger than the mansion we'd left. But this one felt different, older, more fortress-like. My family's original home, Dominic explained as we pulled through gates that looked like they could withstand a tank, the place I grew up. No one outside the family knows about it. Inside, the house was beautiful but lived in, full of history and memories. Dominic led me upstairs to a bedroom that looked like it had been preserved from another era. "This was Adriana's room," he said quietly. "When we were children, before everything went to hell." I turned to him, seeing the grief and rage and fear all tangled together in his expression. Without thinking, I reached up and cupped his face. "We're going to be okay," I said, trying to sound more confident than I felt. "We are." His arms came around me, crushing me against his chest. "Because I'll burn this entire city to the ground before I let anyone take you from me." And standing there in his dead sister's room, held in the arms of a man who dealt in violence and death, I realized something terrifying. I believed him. More than that, I wanted him to mean it. I wanted to be worth burning the world for. The war came swift and brutal. For 2 weeks, we lived in that ancestral home like ghosts haunting our own lives. Dominic left each morning before dawn, returning late at night with blood on his clothes and darkness in his eyes. He never told me details, but I could piece together the story from whispered conversations between his men, from news reports of gang violence escalating across the city. Bodies were found in warehouses, explosions rocked known Castellano properties. The police pretended to investigate while carefully looking the other way. Everyone knew this was something beyond their jurisdiction, a war being fought in shadows they couldn't reach. And through it all, Dominic was consumed by it, the gentle man who'd taught me self-defense, who'd kissed me like I was precious, disappeared beneath layers of cold calculation and merciless strategy. He was a warlord now, every inch of him devoted to destroying the family that had threatened what was his. But he always came back to me, no matter how late, no matter how exhausted. He'd find me before he slept. Sometimes we'd just sit together in silence, my hand in his head against my shoulder. Other times he'd pull me close and kiss me with desperate hunger, stopping himself before things went too far, leaving us both aching and frustrated. "Not yet," he'd whisper against my lips. "Not while there's still danger, not while I'm still covered in blood." I trained every day with Marco, who'd warmed to me after Dominic made it clear I wasn't going anywhere. He taught me to shoot, to fight dirty, to think tactically. And slowly, I transformed from the exhausted nurse who'd stumbled into an operating room into something harder, sharper, someone who could survive in Dominic's world. On the 15th day, everything changed. I woke to find Dominic already dressed, strapping on a shoulder holster with practiced efficiency. The sight of the gun should have terrified me. Instead, I felt my stomach clench with a different kind of fear. What's happening? I sat up, pulling the sheets around me. "It ends today." His voice was flat, emotionless. "We found their headquarters. We know where the Castellano boss is hiding. It's over. Dominic, stay here. Don't leave this room until I come back for you." He moved to the bed, gripping my face between his hands. "Promise me, Emma. No matter what you hear, no matter what happens, you stay here where you're safe. I promise." The words stuck in my throat, "But you have to promise me something too. Anything. Come back to me." I grabbed his wrists, holding on like I could anchor him to this moment. "Whatever you have to do out there, whatever monsters you have to become, come back to me alive." His kiss was searing, possessive, claiming me in ways that went beyond the physical. "I'll come back," he promised against my mouth. "I'll always come back to you." Then he was gone, and I was alone with my fear. The hours crawled by with agonizing slowness. I paced the room like a caged animal, jumped at every sound, strained to hear anything from beyond the walls. Rosa brought food I couldn't eat. Maria tried to distract me with conversation I couldn't focus on. All I could think about was Dominic, out there somewhere, putting himself in danger, painting the city red to keep me safe. It was late afternoon when I heard the vehicles returning. I ran to the window, pressing against the glass, watching as SUVs poured through the gates. Men emerged, some bloodied, some limping, but no Dominic. Fear turned my blood to ice. I threw open the door and ran, ignoring Rosa's protests, taking the stairs 2 at a time. Luca was in the entrance hall, blood streaking one side of his face, but he was smiling, actually smiling. "Where is he?" I demanded. "Where's Dominic?" "He's coming." Luca's grin widened. "It's over, Miss Emma. The Castellanos are finished. Every last one of them. Relief made my knees weak, but it was short-lived. Because Dominic still wasn't here, still wasn't safe in front of me where I could see him breathing. Then I heard his voice, low, commanding, speaking rapid Italian. He came through the door, and my heart nearly stopped. He was covered in blood, not his own, I realized with a strange sort of relief, but splattered across his face, his clothes, his hands. He looked like something from a nightmare. Beautiful and terrible all at once. Our eyes met across the room, and everything else fell away. I ran to him and he caught me, lifting me off my feet, his arms crushing me against him despite the blood. I didn't care. I wrapped myself around him, breathing in the scent of gunpowder and copper, and underneath it all, him. It's done, he murmured into my hair. It's finally done. You're okay? I pulled back to search his face. You're not hurt? Not a scratch. His thumb brushed across my cheekbone. I told you I'd come back to you. Around us, his men were celebrating, clapping each other on the back, laughing with the manic energy of people who'd survived something they weren't sure they would. But Dominic only had eyes for me. I need to clean up, he said, and then we need to talk. 20 minutes later, he emerged from the bathroom clean and wearing fresh clothes. The monster was gone, replaced by the man I'd come to know. Still dangerous, still deadly, but mine in ways that defied logic or reason. We sat on the balcony off his room, overlooking grounds lit by the setting sun. He pulled me into his lap, my back against his chest, his arms wrapped around my waist. Tell me, I said quietly. The Castellano boss, Anthony, he's dead, so is his brother, his underboss, everyone in his inner circle. I burned their properties, seized their assets, absorbed their territory. His voice was matter of fact, like he was describing a business transaction. There's no one left to threaten us. No one left to come after you. So it's over. Yes. His arms tightened. And now you have that choice I promised you. You can stay with me, or I can give you a new life somewhere far from here. Money, protection, a fresh start. Whatever you want, Emma. It's yours. My heart pounded. This was it. The moment of truth. The moment where I had to decide who I was and what I wanted. I thought about my old life, the loneliness, the exhaustion, the feeling of being invisible to everyone around me. I thought about the girl I'd been, small and scared and struggling just to survive. Then I thought about who I'd become in these weeks. Stronger, braver, someone who mattered to the most dangerous man in the city, someone who'd been claimed and treasured and fought for. What do you want? I asked, turning in his arms to face him. If I stay, what does that mean? His eyes burned with intensity. It means you're mine. Completely, irrevocably mine. I'll marry you if you'll have me, not because I'm forcing you, but because I want the world to know you belong to me, and I belong to you. Marry you? My breath caught. Yes. His hand cupped my face. I know it's fast. I know it's insane. But I've never been more certain of anything in my life. These past weeks, fighting to keep you safe, coming back to you every night, it made me realize something. You're not just a second chance or a ghost of my sister. You're everything I didn't know I needed. You make me want to be more than just a monster in expensive suits. You're not a monster. I pressed my palm against his chest, feeling his heartbeat. You're a man who protects what he loves, who fights for the people who matter. That's not monstrous. That's human. Then be human with me. His forehead rested against mine. Stay with me. Marry me. Let me spend the rest of my life proving you made the right choice. I should have said no. Should have taken the money and run, started over somewhere safe and boring and far from this violent world. But I'd learned something about myself in these weeks. I didn't want safe and boring. I wanted to matter. I wanted to be seen. I wanted this complicated, dangerous man who looked at me like I was his salvation. Yes, I whispered. His kiss was everything. Relief and triumph and possession and promise. He lifted me, carrying me inside to the bed, laying me down like I was something infinitely precious. And then he showed me, with hands and mouth and whispered words, exactly what it meant to belong to Dominic Salvatore. We made love as the sun set and the moon rose, as his world outside these walls settled into an uneasy peace. He was gentle and demanding by turns, worshipping every inch of me, claiming me in ways that went bone deep. And when it was over, when we lay tangled together in the darkness, I felt complete in a way I never had before. "I love you," he murmured against my hair. "I know I don't deserve you. I know I'm dragging you into darkness. But I love you, Emma, more than I thought I was capable of loving anything. I love you too." The words felt like freedom. My beautiful monster, my salvation, my home. 3 months later, we married in a small ceremony at the ancestral estate. Maria
Rosa
fussed
cried.
over every detail. Luca served as best man with a grin that transformed his scarred face. And Dominic looked at me like I was the only thing in the world that mattered. I wore a simple white dress and carried flowers from the garden. He wore black, of course, looking every inch the powerful man he was. When he slid the ring onto my finger, a diamond so large it should have been vulgar but somehow wasn't, I felt the weight of the promise it represented. Forever. Protection. Love that was fierce and possessive and all-consuming. We returned to the mansion after the Castellano threat was eliminated, though we kept the ancestral home for weekends away from the city. I started working again, not at a hospital, but at a free clinic Dominic funded in the poorest part of the city. It was my way of staying connected to who I'd been while embracing who I'd become, the wife of a Mafia boss. The woman who'd walked into an operating room and walked out belonging to the most dangerous man in the city. Some nights, I still woke from dreams of that first night. The blood, the fear, the moment our eyes met and everything changed. But then Dominic would pull me close, his heartbeat steady against my back, his arms a fortress around me. "I've got you," he'd murmur in the darkness, always. And I believed him, because Dominic Salvatore kept his promises. He'd burned a city to keep me safe. He'd destroyed an entire family to protect what was his. He'd given me a life beyond anything I'd imagined. In return, I'd given him something he thought he'd lost forever. Hope. Connection. A reason to be more than just the monster his world had made him. We were broken pieces that somehow fit together. A nurse who'd saved a dying man. A killer who'd found his salvation in the woman he'd claimed. It was dark and complicated and fierce. It was passionate and possessive and sometimes frightening in its intensity. But it was ours. Our story. Our love. Our forever. And I wouldn't change a single moment of it. 6 months after the wedding, I stood in the garden where Dominic had first told me I could never leave. The gates were open now. I could come and go as I pleased, protected by men who would die for me because I mattered to their boss. But I didn't want to leave. This was home. These walls that had once been a prison were now a sanctuary, and the man who'd claimed me was waiting inside, probably watching from a window, his possessive gaze tracking my every movement. I smiled, pressing a hand to my still flat stomach where new life was growing. Our child. The next generation of Salvatores. A baby who would be protected with the same fierce devotion Dominic showed me every single day. I turned and walked back toward the mansion, toward my husband, toward the life we'd built from blood and bullets, and a chance encounter that had changed everything. The fluorescent lights and exhaustion felt like another lifetime. Now there was only this, golden sunlight on marble floors, a dangerous man who loved me beyond reason, and a future that stretched out before us like a promise. I'd run to an operating room and found my fate. I'd frozen when I saw him, and he'd claimed me. And somehow, impossibly, we'd found our happy ending in the darkness.